Good morning, everyone. Yeah, it's time. I feel like I'm preaching a sermon, but I'm not. If you weren't here last year to the training, could you raise your hand? I just wanted to make sure you get, wow, that's a lot of people. Let's see. Yeah, Jacob, if you don't mind. So I don't have enough for everyone here, but if maybe just like one per family or couple, if you're here with someone, but especially those who weren't here last year or don't have a copy of the leader manual, I want to make sure you get one. And then we can always print off more, so I just did not prepare ahead. Yeah, and if you'd like just a digital copy, that's very easy to send out as well. Yeah, I could just send a follow-up email and send that to everyone. It's easy to send that out. Oh, so we have extra. Did anyone else want one? Okay, Cushy. Yeah, thanks. Anyone else raise your hand? Okay, one over here, Wendy. And Lynn. Yeah, right there. Okay, very good. All right, so yes, you have in your hands, most of you, the leader, what did I call it? The leader training guide, I think. And we'll be going over a few sections of it today. But we also want to make this an opportunity for those who have been involved in teaching or helping in whatever aspect of children's ministry to get feedback from you, to raise any hiccups or bumps in the road that you've encountered that you'd like some input in, and we can talk about those things as well. But let's start off in a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for the children of this church, of this community. We thank you for the volunteers and for just the joy it is to get to partner together with them. And Lord, with what you're doing by your Spirit, we just ask you to give us wisdom in how we go about serving these children. Lord, that you just make it an enjoyable process for everyone, and that you just help us in ironing out anything that needs ironing out, and Lord, bringing just greater efficiency so that we can focus on just your love, your word, your truth, and imparting that to children of RBC. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so basically, first I want to just give a brief overview of our ministries, especially because there's a lot of new people here, those who haven't been involved in children's ministry at this church before. And so we'll give you a brief overview of what we have going on. Then we're going to talk about some safety issues and some classroom management issues. And that's pretty much it. So that's probably all we'll have time for today. But first, just thank you for taking the time to come today and your investment in the children throughout the year. It really is just such important work. I mean, I've said this before, but it's really, I think, probably the biggest ministry of our church is children's ministry. And so it's really worth our time and attention, and it just has such a lasting impact. So thank you for being willing to do that. Also, so in the leader guide, you have on the next, I think one of the first pages, page 2, it has Meet the Team. So it's a little bit out of date since it only recently changed. I'm no longer the children's ministry director, but I still like to help out where I can, and that includes, providing this training. So Pastor Dan is apart from being the lead pastor here, he's also the Christian education overseer, or the elder over Christian education. So the final buck stops with him. If you ever have a big issue, big concern, he loves to get those. So also we have Terry and Stephanie. Can you raise your hands, Terry and Stephanie? So those two in the back, they're very important because we have some new people that are interested in helping with nursery, and those are our nursery coordinators. They just kind of make sure the nursery room is clean. And what else do you guys do? Just help out with the volunteers, making sure their communication with them. Now, as far as the week-to-week reminders of like scheduling has been taken care of by our secretary. Is that the plan going forward? Our secretary will continue to kind of manage the schedule, but yes, our nursery coordinator. So if you're interested in nursery and you're not in the active rotation, please talk to them, and also let me know. I'm aware of at least a couple people, but yeah, we are always looking for more people to get involved in all the different areas. But so that's nursery. Kids Grow director is Cindy. You want to raise your hand, Cindy? So yeah, she is the one that's during the sermon when the children are dismissed, they go to Kids Grow, and that's where they have their lesson. And so there's two groups in Kids Grow. There's Kids Grow, the younger group, and Kids Grow, the older group, which, okay, well, I think I have a slide for that later, but that's just, there you go, Kids Grow, Cindy's overseeing that. And then David and Patty are our Awana people, so David's in the back there, and Patty I don't think could make it today, right? So, yeah, our Awana commander. So also just what unites all of these ministries, all these different things that we're doing, is our core purpose, which is our core mission statement for Renton Bible Church, which is the spiritual formation of kingdom-oriented people leading to a fully revitalized church. And that's really what we are trying to do with our children's ministries as well as with the whole church. And it's just important to keep that at the forefront of our minds as we go forward, is that we're looking to, like, spiritual formation, it really starts from birth through to the end of our lives, our earthly lives here. So we seek to lay a solid foundation of faith and develop meaningful relationships for children from birth until adolescence. Then we pass them off to the youth group, which is only just starting. So our children's programs, as I was mentioning, this is basically what we have going on at any given week moment, is our nursery, our Kids Grow from 2 to 5s, our Kids Grow from kindergarten through 3rd grade, 4th grade now, so that's actually out of date. We adjusted it slightly. And then our Kids Sunday School, which happens at 9:30 a.m., and Christina is our teacher for that. Oh, there she is. Christina and Marilyn is our other person those two do the Kids Sunday School at 9:30. Awana, Just Among Moms, or JAM, which is mostly for moms, but there is a children's child care component to it as well. And then at special events, which you can see all of that in detail is in the leader packet. If you're like, oh, I'd like to know more about any one of those things, you can flip to the back. Pages 14 through 18, actually even through 20, is going to give you detailed information about each of those ministries, those things that are happening, and the outreach events, including, there's really one for each season that we have traditionally done, and they can change from year to year, but we have our Harvest Carnival, our VBS, an Easter outreach, and a Christmas program. So those are the special events. Any questions just to start off with any of that, or comments? Okay. This I won't spend a lot of time on, but just so you're aware of the curriculum that we're using for some of these things. So Kids Grow, we've been using the Jesus Storybook Bible. It's a great curriculum that I found last year, and the really thing I love about it is that it teaches through just lots of traditional Bible stories that are popular for kids ministry, but it does so in a way that points them to Jesus in every single lesson. And so they can learn about Noah's Ark, but in the end, it's going to point them to the need for a Savior. And that's, I think, really what we want to pass on to children, is this is all connected to our faith in Jesus and seeing God's love through every story that they hear. And so that's Jesus Storybook Bible. That's during the Kids Grow time. During the Sunday school time, we've been using this curriculum called What's in the Bible. It's a little more of I don't know if I'd say in-depth, but it kind of is. It gets into more of the details of like each book of the Bible and takes it, breaks it apart, shows you like what is the book of Judges about. I mean, that's something that children don't often get to hear, especially in a week-to-week, in the Kids Grow format where they're just getting a Bible story. They don't often have time, or you don't have time in that lesson to cover, well, what is this book of the Bible, and what are all these other stories that we don't often tell you about? And so that's what's in the Bible gets to dive a bit more deeply into. It's a great curriculum, video-based. And so, yeah, we've been using that the past year. And then Awana has its own curriculum, and those are some of the booklets of what they use for different age groups. And yeah, that's another great material that especially focuses on Bible memorization. And so they get to memorize a whole bunch of scriptures throughout the year. Okay, and then just some supplements that are for you to be aware of that are in the Kids Grow room, so that back room in the fellowship room. There's the Bible timeline that is up on the wall, and I reference these things because they're great for you to reference anytime you're teaching, especially in that room, to just give that bigger picture for kids to understand where does this story or this teaching fit into the Bible. And so there's a Bible timeline, there's a map of the land of Israel in there, and there's a Bible bookcase chart that shows each of the books of the Bible in a bookcase. So it's good to just point out, this is the book of the Bible we're in, and this is how it fits into all of the rest of the 66 books. Okay, again, this is big overview stuff. So ministry roles, just so anyone who's new is aware of the different ways that you could get involved if you're not already, is you could be a teacher, but a lot of people don't feel comfortable with actually doing the teaching of the lesson, and so we also have a helper that is crucial to making sure the room is well managed, and any children that need some extra support can get that without distracting the lesson that's going on. So we have a teacher and a helper. In the nursery, we just call them the nursery caregivers, and there's always 2 for the nursery. And then there's our directors and coordinators that I've mentioned already. All right, any questions so far or comments? Okay. Also then, commitment as far as what's expected. It's in your leader guide, page 4. The commitment kind of expectations. It's typically once a month is if you're in the rotation, if it's during the actual service. So we don't like to ask someone to give up too much of their time in hearing the sermon and being part of the worship with the adults. We don't want you to miss out on that too often, and so about once a month is what we aim for. Occasionally it might be twice a month if there needs to be a fill-in or something. Also, there's no formal length of commitment, but I would encourage you to stick with it for at least a year if possible, to allow for relationships to form and skills to develop, as well as for a sense of consistency for the children. So if you know that you can only serve for a season, like say just the summer, that's fine too, that can be arranged, but ideally a year or longer would be great. Okay, so if there's no other questions about just big picture overview stuff, then we'll get into the safety. This will be review for most of you, but it's always important to review this stuff because otherwise you end up forgetting it. For example, if I were to quiz you on where are the 2 first aid kits in the church, do you know? Some of you know. The kitchen, yes. Do you know where in the kitchen? Yeah, on top of the fridge. Okay, that's where one is. Where's the other one? It's not in the office, it's near the office. Yeah, in the like welcome center, information center. I think it's hanging on the coat rack. I should double check. It's somewhere around there, so I need to pinpoint that. But anyway, that kind of stuff. It's easy to forget, or you never had to use it in the past year. Well, the day may come, but by God's grace, we won't have to use it too often. So first thing though, as far as safety is concerned, the check-in and check-out process. This is also important for everyone to be aware of, especially for new people. I feel like we haven't maybe consistently applied this. And so it's good to review it. That anytime there's someone, a new child that's being either dropped off or brought to the Kids Grow class, that we have the parents fill out a Kids Connect card. So this is just a card to make sure we know the details about the parents and the child, the caregivers, who can pick up, a lot of just important emergency contact information. So we need to make sure that, let me see, but let's go through just the slide to see what important things I put on here. So yeah, I think that's called just the registration form. Make sure we do that. Yes, Wendy.
Okay, so last week, I think it was last week, they dismissed the kids. So of course the kids go running and they just get mingled in.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some new ones where the parents never went back until the end.
Uh-huh.
How do we address that?
Yeah, that's a good point. So what we'd like to try to do ideally is people would identify any new people before the service starts and get them and bring them a card. If that doesn't happen, and like what you said, the kids come back, then I believe what our policy is that we would send one of the leaders, so your helper, would come in and get the parent and say, oh, would you mind coming back with me and filling out a card for your child? Because we haven't had them before. Yes, Joyce.
One Sunday morning when the children were dismissed, I don't know if it was you or Dan that said that if there are new parents, please go back with your children for the first time. And that is very helpful. That's
Yeah.
what I was thinking.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, and that's written in the bulletin. Now, is every new person going to read the bulletin? Probably not. So yes, if that is something, yeah, the elders should do a bit better job of is, including that I'm talking to myself, obviously as an elder, is that if we see new people with children, that we would make that comment. Now, it might not need to be made every week, but if we see that, we should say that. Yeah, that's a good point. All right, so yes, we have the registration form. We have name tags. Are those being used?
Yes.
Okay, half and half. Some people, some leaders are using them, some might not be. Okay. Yeah, I think for the most part, it's good. We want to make sure we learn the children's names. I know you could, it's easy to, even a few months, I mean, you're only in there once a month with them, so it's easy to forget names. So name tags, we have them back there. They should be out like on the table, and kids typically will just grab them as they come in. Now during the Sunday school, we don't typically use them. I think it just ended up being too much of a hassle, but I think during Kids Grow, we really should try using name tags. Then there's also a roster, and yeah, meeting in the foyer, we described that. So that's we're talking about Kids Grow time at this point. So Kids Grow, when it's dismissed, the teachers meet them in the foyer, or the leaders meet them in the foyer and walk them back to the back room. Whereas the nursery is, you just start out in the nursery and they would bring their babies to you, because that happens during the whole service. So nursery is the only Sunday morning thing that happens during the whole service, whereas Kids Grow only is during the sermon or just after the elder prayer, right? Okay, yeah, any questions about that stuff though? Okay.
Nursery during Sunday school?
Yes, that is a good point. We have struggled to have volunteers for it, but we do plan to have nursery during Sunday school. And that is the other thing about Sunday school, because it doesn't take place during the sermon or during the worship service. Whoever volunteers for, like, for example, for the kids' Sunday school, they do that every week. So that one isn't a once a month, that's every week apart from some subbing in. So for nursery, that could happen. So if anyone's interested, does anyone aware of, I think we're looking for nursery Sunday school volunteers. And if you were like, well, I'd be willing to do it, but not every week, then we could look at maybe every other week or possibly once every 3 weeks or something like that, if we found some other volunteers for it too. But yes, ideally we'd have nursery for, Julie was doing it. Julie was our secretary before, who just moved to Minnesota. She was doing, her and Ernest were taking care of the Sunday school nursery. So now we need it. All right, so pick up and check out. Now, again, this is all actually in page 5 that describes the check-in, check-out process. So let me just see if there's anything important I need to note here. Parents and guardians will retrieve their children following the worship service. Only release the child to those who have been indicated as allowed to pick up on the registration form. The official checkout process is as follows. Greet and identify the adult as the child's parent/guardian. Most of the parents you'll know, and you know who the child belongs to. But if you occasionally don't know, that's good to make contact and check in on that at that point. Then retrieve the reusable name tag from the child, and then mark checked out on the roster next to the child's name. So that is, as soon as you've taken the name tag from the child and you've identified the parent, that is the official checkout. So that means they are checked out, and then you're just verifying it by checking on the roster, marking the checkout on the roster. If an adult or teenager comes to pick up a child that you do not know, make sure to introduce yourself and ask their name. Then check to see if they are on the allowed to pick up list. Okay, any issues with that in the past year for those that have been doing it? Or questions, or has it been, has that time been overwhelming at all? Has it been a challenge to juggle those components? Or has it been like, oh no, that was straightforward? No feedback?
So like at least for the kids grove, like when the kids want to rush out, is it like at the last place we were at, they had a table set across, so they actually couldn't just rush out. They had to go around the table and then through. But I mean, there's just like this rush, and they sit at the door and kind of look for their parents down the hallway and check.
Yes.
For Awana, but I'm sure similar for kids grove.
Oh, okay. That happens during Awana.
Yeah, but also I think it happens during kids grove too, where parents kind of crowd the hallways and kids just run out.
Yeah. Well, at the very least, they have to return the name tag, so that's kind of the one thing that you can call them back for, Yeah, a table, that's a good idea. It's an idea, yeah, a good idea. I don't know if we'll implement that right away, but that's something to consider at least, is like if we set up a table to keep them, it wouldn't block the doorway necessarily, it would just be a little bit of an obstacle.
Forces them to go through the
Yeah, they'd have to go around the table.
adult sitting with the check-in, check-out.
Yeah.
So it hurts them, but I mean, it's basically,
It might be possible. I know that one other concern would be that sometimes after kids grow up, there's extra time, they'll go to the playground. And so then it's like, well, that's a whole new process. But yeah, that's good feedback. But yeah, if people haven't been having too much of a challenge with just making sure that they get the name tag and have that checkout process, then that should be fine. But yes, Indy.
I kind of do break the rules a little bit.
Yeah.
I have one that never picks up
Oh,
one
yeah.
time. And so I take her to the parent.
Yeah.
Say, I'm giving you the kid.
Right.
And make sure she knows that I'm turning the kid over to her. And,
Uh-huh.
Is that okay?
That's, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, please, no one should feel like you're going to get in trouble if you bring up an issue. Yeah, so that's happened at least in Sunday school. I experienced that as well, where it's like when it comes down to the last child or the last siblings that are together, then yeah, it just has been easiest to just at that point take them to the parent. It's a little bit of a bad habit to get into, but at our current size, we can get away with it, and I think that's okay for now, unless Pastor Dan tells me no, don't do that. But I'd say, yeah, if you get down to the last child, you're just waiting on one parent, and you know who the parent is, then taking them to the parent is okay. Yeah. Yes, Jamie.
So about the playground, my previous assumption was that if I or someone check out Robert, give him the name tag, that he is officially my responsibility now, and if I say you can go play on the playground, that's okay. Is that actually okay with everybody? Because I want to make sure people aren't feeling like they have to keep watching him after.
Well, if he doesn't have his name tag anymore,
Yeah.
then he's been.
And you're present, or you kind of like, I trust
actually
him?
cleaning up coffee.
You should
Right.
repeat that, because I don't think everybody.
Yeah, I'll repeat it. So yeah, if a parent comes and picks up their child, does the checkout process, that is now the child is the parent's responsibility, and then the parent allows them to go play on the playground with the other children. Does that cause issues for the leaders who are now trying to keep track of the other children? Debbie.
I have gotten feedback that it has caused problems because then the leaders don't know who has actually been picked up and not been picked up. So if we have something like the name tags and the name tag's gone, maybe that's helpful, but I think as some of our leaders, we don't know all the kids anymore. It just is a little more complex, and we do need to be super careful.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, at that point, if the leader wasn't the one who checked them out, or maybe they just forgot that they checked them out, and it's like, well, they don't know if the child just lost their name tag or if they got checked out. So I guess at that point, ideally, then you'd, as the parent, would wait until all the children have been checked out, and then they could go to the playground, and then it's like the leaders are off duty, not watching any children. Unless we can think of a better solution for that.
Okay, so we want to enforce it that way?
It sounds like, yeah. Or I guess what you could do then is wait to check him out until the end.
I thought the point was I'm supposed to have him get picked up right after service so the leaders can go.
Yeah.
I hate for people to have to wait for him.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be that you could go back and tell the leader, that you don't want to confuse the leaders too much.
Well, and so Christina next to me is saying she often sits at the playground to let Gianna play. So then is that okay if another adult is watching the kids and is clearly in charge of some of the kids there, or is that confusing too?
I mean, I've had the kids grow, people be like, okay, well, yours is, they'll be like, all the kids here, their parents are also here, so we're gonna.
Yeah, I think go
Maybe
ahead.
what we need to do is encourage the parents to pick up their kids right away. And then the leaders are off duty sooner, and they don't have to be guessing which ones am I in charge of and which ones aren't I in charge of.
That is the ideal situation. but I know of parents that just, especially, it won't get through to everyone. David.
One other suggestion, just at the end of the time, just bring them into the classroom, and they can't leave until the parents come and get them. Once the parents get them, they can go out to the playground.
Oh, only kids who've been picked up are on.
Yeah, I mean, I like that better.
Because then the kids get on their parents for not picking them up sooner too, if they want to go play.
Uh-huh.
That's a great one. That's true.
It's really good.
Okay, so once, they could take them out to the playground, the leaders could take them out to the playground, but as soon as it hits 11:45, they bring them in and get picked up from inside. I think that's a great policy.
Keeps Dan accountable too, to be done at 11:45.
Now that is another factor that's outside of our control. That,
happened yet.
yeah. I was gonna write that down. I'll have to remember that. Could someone? Yeah, you want to throw that to me? Thank you.
Doesn't that make the leader now responsible for having their kids outside the doors open? And our kids not just gonna go in and out? I mean, trying to keep them in the.
Oh yeah, the door would be closed to outside, and then only the parent with their child could exit out that door.
Just lock them out of the playground.
Yeah.
You could also ask the parents if they want to take their kid to the playground to walk them around outside. Instead of trying to go to the classroom with other kids are leaving.
It's really a good idea, but I can see. And so the parents who come out should just lock themselves out of it, basically.
Well, yeah, she didn't always walk around.
Yeah, because she's gonna run away. Well, but that's something that's
Then
going to
everybody's
be
fine.
immediately addressed.
Okay, we don't want to get too off track here. We want to make sure we're getting through this. Okay, so we went through all this checkout process. There's also just a policy for sick kids. To avoid getting several other kids or babies sick, we will only accept children who appear to be healthy, no colds or flus. If a child is sick, return them to their parent and offer other options. For example, they can sit with their parents in the sanctuary, or they could go with their parents to the green room to watch the service from there. And our green room is just down the hall from the bathrooms here on the left. And yeah, if they need to be socially distanced from there. Okay, safety guidelines, physical touch. You can see the other safety guideline stuff in the leader guide. Let me see. Oh, okay, it's starting on page 10. So yes, please review these things. We want to obviously show an appropriate level of love and care while also recognizing that, this is a somewhat public, situation. We're not all family as far as you know what I mean, as far as the ways that we interact with our families might be a little bit different than how we interact with others' children. So yeah, I invite you to look over just some of the guidelines for nursery and then for the older age group as well. Okay. Leader to child ratio. We try to do at least 2 leaders to each classroom. And if one of the leaders needs to leave for whatever reason, make sure that the other leader keeps the door to the classroom open and another classroom is within earshot and eyesight, and make other classroom leaders aware of the situation. So just that we're having at least eyes and ears, at least 2 adults somewhat present at all times. But we're even considering if we can get the volunteers to increase, at least for our Kids Grow, to 3 adults, because I know our groups have been getting larger. And so if we're able to get the volunteers for it, that would be even better to have 3 in that room. Okay, other safety guidelines. Those are pretty standard for all of our events and things. Open spaces, activities should be done in an open area or room, not in private spaces. Some of this, like field trips, wouldn't necessarily apply to most of our week-to-week events, but more than 1 adult should accompany children if you're going from room to room. We're gonna, just make sure we're checking on bathrooms and things. As far as our bathroom policy, I believe we just allow, if they're in the older Kids Grow group, they just can go to the restroom. Do they go on their own, or do we ask them to bring a buddy with them? On their own, okay. So yeah, that would just be something we want to keep an eye on. If they're in the younger group, then the leaders go with them. And you want to leave the door open if there is any need to help children in the restroom. And ideally you can bring, either you can all go as a group, or how do you guys manage that best? In, let's say, like the younger Kids Grow group, do you guys send them, or do you have them go as a group?
Sometimes before snack, we just all go down, and if they need to use the bathroom, they can, but they're washing their hands.
Okay, so you're all going down to wash your hands, which, it's good before snack, and then if they need to use it, so you're all there together.
If they have to go one at a time, one of the helpers stays in, or the helper takes them down, one teacher stays in the room.
Okay. So she was saying if someone does need to go, not during that before snack time, then the leader would accompany them down to the restroom. All right, very good. And the nursery has its own private restroom, not that babies would be able to use it, but if you need to clean up or do whatever you need to in there. Okay, yes, Joyce.
In our class, in the older Kids Grow, when the little ones go down, we'll go down with them and just stand in the hall. But I like to direct each child to the one on the left where that's the only person that's in that room is the child. Because sometimes we'll go down the hall and we can hear that there are people in the other bathrooms. And I don't feel comfortable just sending a child in with someone that I can't see. So if we could all just use the bathroom on the left, the single bathroom.
Oh, the handicap family bathroom that's over there.
Send them in there. And then
Yeah.
you just wait in the hall, or if it's the older kids, we just watch. Leave the door open in our classroom and just watch down the hall.
Okay, yeah. So if you're sending them on their own, it'd be better for them to use the family bathroom, because that one, there won't be anyone else in there. If you're going as a group or if you're accompanying the child down, then you're able to see who's in the bathrooms, and you can use the regular bathrooms.
And then just stand at the door until they come out.
Yeah, standing in the door, making sure the door stays open in that one. I think that makes the most sense. It's good. So it'd just be a matter of, for the older kids to say, I'll use the one on the left that is the private bathroom. Okay. I mean, I'll leave it up to the leader's kind of discretion. I guess there's not a written policy there. But I do think that, yeah, if that sounds like a good way to go about it. Okay, is injuries, we went over where the first aid kits are, but it's also written in here. Yeah, on top of the fridge and in the information center is where the first aid kits are. And then, yes, Roland.
We also have a defibrillator.
Oh, the defibrillator, yes, where is that kept?
It's in the corridor as you're going back to the Sunday school wing. It's on the wall.
Okay, it's like straight ahead of me, right? And that's on the left? Yeah. So certain people are trained in that, is that right?
Yeah.
You're one of them, so Roland would be one. So that's if there's a heart attack or a heart stopped, is that correct? Okay. Yeah, so that we do have that on the premises if that's needed too. But most or all of your situations will be the not so serious kind, hopefully. And that is where we just stay calm, offer a Band-Aid and a prayer, and keep things moving, right? But if there's a lot of blood, or there's a broken bone, or something out of joint, again, stay calm. But then we're gonna get parents, we're gonna call 911 if it's needed, gonna get some additional help. I don't know if we have any nurses in our congregation. Maybe, maybe not. I guess I'm not aware of any. So if we do become aware of any nurses, we'll try to make sure that gets communicated.
Judy Carlson's a retired nurse.
Judy Carlson is? Oh.
Annie.
Oh, and Annie is. Oh, awesome. You don't, do you want that responsibility? Well, yeah, it's good to be aware of, just in case something did need some immediate attention. Okay, good. Yeah, otherwise, yeah, we're just gonna make the call, 911, getting parents as soon as possible, and do a write-up afterwards. So we wanna make sure that we document, how we handled it and what we observed for anything that's needed. I think there's...
For the serious ones, not the...
Yes, that's right, for the serious ones. If there's, yes, not the not so serious. So a lot of blood, like I said, broken bone, symptoms of a concussion, that could be considered serious as well. Yeah, okay. And other emergency things are also in your packet. For all evacuations, you're responsible for the kids in your classroom. All children need to be guided out of the building using the nearest exit. There's one in that, depending on if you're in the younger kids grow group or the nursery or the other one, kind of just identify your nearest exit. Each group staying together with their leaders, bring a clipboard and the classroom binder. The biggest thing is just keep your kids accounted for. And then we would take them out to the basketball hoop behind the church. That's the children's safe zone is there. That's just kind of where we've designated it. It's kind of across from the playground. Any questions about that? Okay. And then, parents can pick up from there. Earthquakes, you probably remember from school what to do with that. Get under cover. Yeah, again, we could move out of the building once it's safe. And lockdowns, obviously at that point we're staying in our rooms and just closing doors and making sure things are locked. Okay, if there's a missing child, this is maybe a little more somewhat common. One leader would stay in the classroom, one leader would go. So if a child ran from the classroom, all of a sudden you don't know where they are, or they were there and now they're not, they go missing. Have one leader stay with the other children, prop open the door, inform the other classroom leaders what's going on. Meanwhile, the second leader should go to where they think the child is. If the child is not found there, then immediately get the usher on duty and any other available trusted adults involved looking for the child. We want to get that search going as soon as possible without disrupting the service. And then it should be, there is some leeway as far as like within a few minutes, if you're not finding the child, then we really do need to get the parent involved. And if a child is not found, then call, text, or go get the children's ministry director or Awana commander if it's during Awana, and get the child's parent. So that would be, for example, you could go get Debbie or Cindy or one of the other leaders that have been mentioned. And then just inform them of when the child was last seen and any details of what led to their disappearance, and continue to search for them, and then let them decide further action. Any questions about that? Or situations that came up in the past year of how it was handled? It's very rare, it doesn't happen too often, but I think there was at least once or twice. And they were found, the child was found fairly quickly, so. Okay. Now, great, we're doing great on time, right? It's only been an hour. So how are you guys feeling? Do you need like a 5-minute break, need some more snacks, and then come back in it for classroom management? All right, 5-minute break, give you guys a breather. All right. Just a couple quick notes that, going back to safety. One thing that was brought up to me in the break that's written in the packet, but I neglected to mention, was if you do notice just any behavior from any adult in the church that feels suspicious, feels a little off to you, please make sure you let one of the elders know. That would be myself, Pastor Dan, or Dirk, or Debbie would be another person that you could bring that up to. There's just, I've heard enough horror stories within the church and outside the church that we want to just be aware of that, and that's just part of all of our collective responsibility, but make sure we take it on as our personal responsibility. That if we just notice anything that, if an adult is giving a lot of attention to a particular child that seems just inappropriate, then it's not that you're making an accusation. I mean, if it gets to the level of making an accusation, that's even more serious, that needs to be directly addressed. But even if it's just like, I just feel like it feels a little suspicious or just off to me, make that, inform the leaders about that, meaning the elders of the church, so that we can follow up on it in a way that's appropriate, that's not blown out of proportion, but making sure we're doing our due diligence. Also, just for another note about when we send children to the bathroom, if the child is a known runner, they're known to kind of escape, you might want to take a little more attention, either standing at the doorway, watching them go into the bathroom, waiting, kind of staying in the doorway until they return. That kind of stuff is another good tip that Cindy mentioned. Yes, hold on. Okay, if you send a pair of children, sometimes that can be more distracting in the bathroom, and they end up playing. So try to get to know your children, the children that you're responsible for. Joyce? That's why, yes, that if you follow Joyce's advice, that could be resolved, possibly. where one child goes into the bathroom by themselves on the left side. All right. Okay, let's get into some classroom management stuff. I believe it starts on page 6 in the leader guide. So first, there's just a few general tips before we get into the official classroom rules, which aren't exactly your typical rules, but we'll talk about those. But just some general tips is it's important to be prepared, to take a deep breath, make sure we're staying calm throughout the whole process. We're clear with our instructions and our teaching. If we're a little bit unclear of what we're supposed to be doing, or if we're unclear on what the lesson's about, that's going to be even less clear to the children, and they will get distracted and not want to focus because they're like, well, we don't even know what we're trying to focus on. So the clearer we are, the more prepared we are, a lot of times the smoother it goes. Also, we want to make sure we're working together with the teacher helper team, or just if you're, sometimes those roles are less defined, it's just the two leaders in the room, making sure you're tag teaming it, getting each other's help, and making it fun, and then also using the Give Me 5. So this ties into what we're going to talk about with our classroom rules, but I do just want to read this section on Give Me 5. Inevitably, there will be times when children are talking when they shouldn't be, or they're goofing around, and you need to get everyone's attention to bring them back on track. To do this, try saying, "Give me 5," then count down from 5 to 0. So you go, "Give me 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that's, at least during the Kids Grow time and during the Sunday school time, all the children know that. Now I know the Awana uses a slightly different, you guys count up to 5, is that right? So yeah, I guess for those who are just doing Awana, slightly different process, but similar concept. So again, just going through this, say "Give me 5," count down to 0. Children should raise one hand in the air until you reach 0. Then they should clap their hands together and should keep them folded in their lap for at least a moment there to just get them still and calm, hands to themselves. Give Me 5 means everyone should be silent, eyes on you, ready to listen. It is a reminder to follow the 5 classroom rules. Now, I have done it where once they get to 0, they stop for about 0.2 seconds, and then they go back to talking. So then I have to say, no, hang on. Give Me 5 means we're not talking, and we're keeping our hands to ourselves. So it's just reinforce it. They need those gentle reminders. And like I said, it ties it back into the classroom rules, which are on page 7 there. Let me see if I don't think I made. Oh yes, I did. Okay, it's on here. Rule number 1, and this is something we want to try and reinforce every week in Kids Grow. By the way you start out Kids Grow is by reviewing the classroom rules. Now I know that might not happen every single week, but that is the goal. Is if you can remember, make sure we're reinforcing it, and there's even some hand motions to remember what the rules are. So, and it's on a poster in both classrooms, in the younger Kids Grow classroom and in the fellowship room. And so rule number 1 is I can listen, meaning they can pay attention, listen, obey instructions, they can listen. Number 2 is I can learn, or other times you do it like this, I can learn. And that means we're going to be learning something today. We're engaging our minds, and there's something that's going to be interesting, and they are able to do that. Pay attention to the lesson. Number 3, I can stay safe. So that means that they keep their hands to themselves, that they're not hurting others, they're not endangering themselves. It encompasses really a whole lot of things, but it's a key rule, I can stay safe. Rule number 4, I can show respect. So that's for 4, show respect, meaning we're treating our leaders and one another with respect that we all deserve. And number 5, I can participate, like you're doing hands in, which the second part of rule number 5, you guys know it, I can have fun. All right, so I can listen, I can learn, I can stay safe, I can show respect, I can participate, and I can have fun. Those are our 5 classroom rules. Any questions or comments about that? Great. All right, so we want to reinforce those. Now, what happens when a child inevitably does not follow those classroom rules? Something doesn't go as planned. We have a process. These slides are not exactly what it was. I'm sure that happened last year and I didn't fix it. Okay. So when there's disruptive and harmful behavior. So we really want to take a grace-based approach to correction, to dealing with disruptive and harmful behavior. We're not authoritarians, and we're not, really, it's not our responsibility to bring a lot of top-down discipline to the children that we only get to see for, less than an hour on a Sunday. If that's their main experience here at church, is just getting disciplined, getting in trouble all the time at church, then they're going to associate church with that, and it's going to be a negative experience. And so that's really not our job. But we also do want to keep them safe, the classroom safe. And so we want to do that in an understanding way and really going the extra mile for these children. So just some discipline: do not strike a child in any way. It's pretty obvious. Do not raise your hand at a child. Don't yell at a child, threaten a child, speak hurtful words to them or a parent or another leader. Don't grab a child's arm or wrist firmly, and don't embarrass or shame the child. So that's ideally. I know we all, as adults, we sometimes can misbehave, and it's just important to reinforce that. Okay, we're here to love children, and so that means not embarrassing, not shaming, those kinds of things. So prerequisites to when there's disruptive behavior. We want to look at intentions first, not just the behavior. What is it that the child is trying to accomplish? Maybe it's that they're trying to, engage with their friends because they want to impress the others in the room. Maybe it's that they're worried about, something else in their life, or, and it's manifesting itself in different ways. So part of it is trying to see the bigger picture and not just the detail of, what they're doing that's getting on our nerves or disrupting the room. So we want to stay calm. We want to try to redirect their energy and attention into something that's productive. And we want to hear out their concerns. So it might just mean asking the child, if they seem to be kind of consistently, like the little reminders aren't working and they're just having a rough day, maybe it's stopping to ask them, hey, I noticed that you're having a hard time paying attention today. What's going on? Is something wrong? And sometimes, it doesn't always work, but sometimes they're able to say, oh yeah, well, I'm worried about my dad, is this and that, or, a whole number of things. It's when I've just asked a child, what's wrong, I've gotten some pretty surprising answers. So it's a good prerequisite to dealing with any disruptive behavior. Just some other first steps that are outlined in here. First is just proximity. If children are keep getting distracted and stuff, the helper in the room, especially if this is during the lesson, the other leader can go and just sit near the child that's getting distracted a lot. Sometimes just being close to them, then feeling the presence of an adult can just help them, realize that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. And then, of course, using the Give Me 5, reviewing the rules even if the classroom is kind of getting disruptive and there's multiple children. It's going, okay, let's talk about our rules again. What do we say we can do? We can listen, we can learn, show respect. Going through those things is just a good way of reinforcing it. And then we also have this new tool that we've started using, the carpet squares. How has that been going? Any feedback on what you've been doing? Cindy says great. Yeah, anyone else? You guys have been using them? Yeah, so these, I believe they're only in the fellowship room, right? So this is, so during the Kids Grow time in the fellowship room, the older kids grow, we have carpet squares that then just allows them to have a physical spot that they know that this is where I am, and you distance them from the other children so that they're not hitting each other and laying down on each other and doing all kinds of stuff that it's easy to get distracted by. Okay, so those are just first steps. Going forward, if there's still concern, then we give them their options. So now it's, okay, if they're not listening or paying attention to the lesson, well, you can, go sit over here, or you can stay with the group, and keep your hands to yourself. It's like, okay, well, if you're not going to choose to keep your hands to yourself in the group, then your choice is that you've chosen to sit over there. That kind of thing. So it's giving them the option, and sometimes, maybe they want, and make sure you're giving them two options that you're okay with both options. If you're giving them the option of, well, you can go to your parent, or you can stay in here, and you don't want to send them to their parent, that'd be very disruptive to the whole thing. Don't give them that option. Don't let them know that that's an option. The option is, here you can go color over here, or you can play the game with the group. Those are and you'd be happy with both options. So that's our first approach here if we're really needing to deal with something disruptive. And then if it's still needed, then we separate the child from the problem. So this is a different approach than timeout. It's not that, okay, you're in jail now for the next 2 minutes. It's you need to go calm your body down for a couple minutes, and that means separating from the group. And then it's a judgment call for the leaders, but it might include a heart-to-heart with one of the leaders. So that might be the right time to go over to them while they're separated from the group for a time to calm down. And you say, what's going on today? Are you okay? Hear out their concerns then. And then it's saying, okay, well, when you're ready, then to follow the classroom rules, we'd love for you to come join the group again. And then if it's really needed, if it's just it's creating an unsafe environment for themselves or for the other children, it's just a disruption to the point where the lesson can't go on, then it might be a time to bring in some parental contact. And we want to be careful about the way we do that as well, to make sure we're not making the parents feel bad or being accusatory. So I do want to just review that policy on page 9. In severe cases, we always have the option to get the parents involved. This is reserved for when a child is putting themselves or others in imminent danger, or if the behavior is causing disruption to the point where the class cannot continue. In this case, you should contact the child's parent, have them pick up their child. Make sure you communicate clearly what occurred while also showing care and support. This is about safety, not personal offense or annoyance. And any serious incidences or persistent problems should be reported to the elders, to Pastor Dan, to Debbie, to one of the coordinators or directors. If a child was having a rough day and causing issues, but you didn't need to go get the parent during that time, I think you should still communicate with the parent. Inform the parent afterwards in a supportive and loving manner. And try to end on a positive note, such as, Johnny seemed to have a lot of energy today and had a hard time paying attention during the Bible lesson. We had to separate him from the group so that he could have some time to calm down, but when we brought him back in, he did a great job with the craft and playing with Susie. Things like that. That we're reinforcing that we are committed to the child and to their social and personal development, while also making sure the parents are aware of the issue. And then maybe, that could be in the future, getting the parents involved with ideas for how to help the child stay regulated and to participate in a way that's helpful. So that's just an important point about parental contact. So partnering with parents, making sure we're communicating. I know you only are there, at least for Kids Grow, once a week, or no, once a month. So, you might not be able to notice persistent behavior as easily, but just being in contact with parents, with the coordinators, so that, and with the other leaders even, so that we're all on the same page and aware of any issues. So if a child did run out of the room and they were missing for 10 minutes, that's an important thing that next week leaders should know, right? Because then they should just be aware of, okay, that's something I'm going to need to keep an eye out for. So communicating with parents, with leaders, all of it, as best as we can. Any questions or comments about that? Okay. Then let's see, special needs awareness. Now we went through this last year as well, and it's worth going over at least briefly. I won't spend as much time as I did last year, but it's on the back of your leader guide with some fill-ins. It should look something like this. Just because we do have some special needs children with us, and we want to do our best as a small church with limited resources to serve them and show them the love that they need and deserve. So the special needs could include things like autism, which is a fairly complicated I don't know, do they call it a disorder? I'm not totally up on all the lingo, but it's a whole spectrum that can take a lot of different forms, all the way from children who are nonverbal, unable to communicate, to those who are very highly functioning and even like excel in certain areas of study and things like that. So it can take all kinds of different forms, but it's just one issue to be aware of. The definition I provided there refers to a broad range of conditions characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, speech, and nonverbal communication. So they often have a harder time understanding metaphors, understanding abstract thought, and a hard time picking up on social cues. ADHD is another big one in our world today, a disorder characterized by inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. So those would be the children who have a harder time sitting still or just staying focused on any topic for a prolonged period of time. And then there's just other trauma that can cause a greater, that can bring about greater need. So ACE is an acronym for Adverse Childhood Experiences, which are traumas experienced in childhood, which could include abuse of any kind, an unstable or unpredictable household member, having a household member who has a mental illness, alcoholism, incarceration, domestic violence. Even divorce could, not necessarily, but it could cause some trauma or separation of a parent. So those are just other things to be aware of, that these are the types of special needs that there's a lot of children are experiencing today, and that we need some extra grace for. So also could be other miscellaneous behavior disorders, sensory processing disorders, physical disabilities, and learning disabilities. So how do we approach our special needs? Essentially, okay, well, first just some 5 foundational approach things to keep in mind. So one is to remember that every child is unique, and their challenges are going to be unique. But we're going to, just as we show love, grace, and patience with all children, it's good to highlight that we especially want to be aware of that, and knowing that it's going to take a little extra love, grace, and patience with those with special needs. And then we need to be flexible and teachable, being willing to learn what those special needs are and what are the particular types of challenges, especially those sensory input things that we would be less, aware of in ourselves. When we feel cold, we put on a sweater, right? But for certain children who aren't able to really process those senses in a logical way, they might feel like a noise is too loud, but they can't say, oh, that's too loud. Instead, they're going to act out. And so learning the child and what they need and how they're processing the world means that we need to be teachable. And as I just brought up, that sensory awareness is a key one. And then also just social awareness. So like those with challenges in those social interactions, picking up on social cues, providing that extra support that a child needs in that. So now these next 5 are more, maybe some more practical teaching tips for us. So the value of consistency and routine. As much as we can be, we're trying to make it predictable so that those the children who do have special needs, things that if you throw a curveball at them, they're not going to know how to handle that. Whereas they like the routine, they like to know what to expect. If you do want to try something out of the ordinary, make something extra special, it might just mean letting that child know beforehand, to give them a heads up, to prepare them mentally before they get to so there's no surprises for them. You could surprise the other children if that's your desire, but that consistency and routine is important. Giving clear and succinct instructions. Now think about it again, if there's too much sensory input, which includes instruction. So if I'm giving an instruction for this is how you do the lesson, if I do it in a wordy way that's complicated, it's hard enough for a child without special needs to process that. But if they have special needs, that's going to go over their heads, and so a lot of times. And so it's important to just keep it succinct, to the point, and if needed, just repeating the same exact words. So being willing to repeat yourself in a patient way, because I know that can get frustrating too. If you're like, I just told you the instructions. Well, some kids, they weren't paying attention. They weren't able in a spot mentally where they could receive it, so they might need to hear it 2 or 3 times. And then, being specific. And then using positive reinforcement more than negative, kind of that grace-based approach. And number 10, remaining calm during even the worst behavior. That we, go to our happy place, remember our security in the Lord, and that we're not failures. There's just sometimes children have tough days, just like we do. And staying calm, being that stable, calm presence for them is really helpful. Okay, any questions about that stuff? I went through it pretty quick. I could have spent a lot more time on it, but it's good to be aware of. And any challenges that you had that you can think of, whether in the church or outside the church in the past year, or advice? Yes?
I recently watched a tutorial on teaching the gospel message to children. And one of the things that I hadn't given a lot of attention to in the past is we often in church use metaphors. They might be in music, they might be in just talking about an event in the Bible. And children don't grasp that a lot. They don't have the life experience to understand those metaphors. And so they were saying it's very important when you're talking to children about the gospel is not to use a picture they might not understand, but to use the actual words of what you're talking about. And the example they gave that really hit home with me is if you were singing a gospel song, there is a fountain filled with blood. What would kids be thinking about? They would not appreciate that, maybe. They might not even know what you're talking about. And ew, that's awful. So when we talk about the suffering of Christ and the pain that he endured and the blood that he shed and why, we want to use specific words to describe it.
Very good, thank you. Yeah, I'll reinforce that just because we're recording this as well, so those that couldn't hear it, is that we do want to be really careful about the metaphors that we're using for children. Because metaphors can be a beautiful teaching tool, but especially for special needs children, that doesn't connect. But even for all children, they don't have the life experience to really make those connections with this abstract idea and how that relates to a reality. And so with children, it's good to be a little overly literal, and if you're using a metaphor, because I think metaphors are a valid teaching tool, but then to even over-explain it, break it down for them so they can tie it to what they can understand, using concrete, what you're really referring to, and not assuming that they're going to just pick up on it. It's a great message for us to hear.
Do we need to be really careful about just the word, not like a metaphor, but a word we use, because something that seems normal to us, to the little ones, that just goes right over their head.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that age group there that you've got to figure who you're teaching to, and then if they're going to understand the word, because the older kids may understand that, but some of the younger ones may not.
Yeah, that's a great point too, is we can get used to our jargon, our church language, Christianese is another term for it, words that make sense in when you're in people who are around church for a long time, but if you're around new believers, those outside the church, and children who haven't been in it for a long time because they haven't lived it long enough, that we make sure we are explaining, again, in concrete terms, what we're talking about. Even words like salvation. One thing with the Jesus Storybook Bible, I think they use the term rescuer more than savior, because rescuer makes a little more sense to a child, right? It makes more sense to me. It's like, okay, I need rescuing, out of something that's a problem. Whereas a savior is a little more abstract, a little less common. I don't know any other context where we'd use the term savior that I can think of outside of Jesus. And so it's, things like that where we're being a little more aware. That's the great thing about teaching children, is you learn for yourself, like, okay, what do I really mean by these things? I can't just use words that sound nice, but like trying to explain them in concrete terms is good. Yes, indeed.
I have a question, not about what you've gone through, but about the whole aspect of it. I heard that you've got your 2s through 5-ish, and then you've got the big classroom, and that they're going to be split in that big classroom. Is that still the case? And are we going to be able to get enough volunteers for it?
Currently, we won't be splitting them. I think that perhaps was an idea, and if we got enough volunteers for it, maybe. But as far as right now, they won't be split in that classroom. So yeah, there's the 2 to 5s in classroom 1, I think it is called. And then the fellowship room for Kids Grow is kindergarten through 4th grade, and they're just all together. Cindy, was there anything that changed about that? No? Yeah. So the only idea that we, again, haven't implemented yet, but we'd like to do is to just get a 3rd adult, or at least a 3rd, even if it's a teenager, a 3rd helper in that group, because it's getting larger. So we're working on what to do about how large it is, but it's still all together, kindergarten through 4th grade.
23 of them last week?
Sounds about right. Yeah, the groups, it can get over 20. Yeah, so over 20, that's about time for a 3rd helper. And in fact, if it does get to a point where you're back there and you're like, this is overwhelming, send someone to go get. Debbie is willing. Cindy is willing. I'd say those are your first 2 people to check on, and just say, hey, could you come back and be another presence, adult presence back there? If I don't have any other responsibilities, which is pretty rare, but if I'm available, I'll be back. I'll go back too. Or even if you're aware of just other people who are in the rotation that are regular Kids Grow helpers, come get a 3rd helper, because we don't want you to just be drowning back there with only 2 if it gets to a large group. All right, I want to invite Debbie on up to share a few thoughts as well. And keep thinking of any other questions you have. If it gets into more specific things, we can talk about it afterwards, but we could address anything else after Debbie shares. You could use this works.
Hello. First of all, shout out to Keith and Cindy for all that they do. Keith, this is such solid information, so good even to hear on an annual basis. I love it. And Cindy, most of you know, she is pulling together all of the materials every Sunday. I have taught preschool for many years. That is a lot of work. So thank you for all you do to get it ready and keep it easy for us. I'm here just to kind of give a little rah-rah at the end because I love kids, as you guys do. That's why you're here. You're helping to serve our children. But I just wanted to just share a few things. We've got a small window in which we can influence the heart of these children for Jesus. So let's make sure that we're rock solid in what we're teaching, that we're familiar with the lesson that we're teaching and the theology that it presents. Many of you know that Dan came to know Christ because a little church bus came down his gravel road with a sweet little lady that was willing to do that every Sunday. That was her ministry. Otherwise, who knows where Dan would be today. But that gal went down the road. His mom said, free childcare, yippee. But Dan came to know the Lord through that church and that ministry. So what you're doing is just, you never know the impact that you're going to have on these lives. Some of the children might only be here once or twice. So we want to make sure that they know that we care and that the God of the universe loves them, right? One time when I was teaching, the kids were unruly a bit. So I asked them, how much do you guys think your teachers here are paid? And I got a lot of answers. But then I shared with them that we all are volunteers. They're here. You all are here because you love the Lord. You see, you know the hope that He has in your life. And we want to make sure that we are passing that baton. We're passing our faith on to the younger generation. So take time with the kids. Share what He means to you. Let it be personal for your own walk with the Lord and the change He's made in your own lives. Let them know it's real and that it's impactful for us personally, of course, on their level. And another thing that I was thinking about this last week is we share this teaching, having a monthly rotation so that it's not as heavy of a load on one or two people, but it puts us in a position of being like a substitute teacher. And that's what I used to do for the Renton School District. I used to be a substitute teacher. Y'all know what the substitute teacher gets, right? Ooh, good weekend. So if we're changing our teachers every week, there could be a lack of consistency, and the kids might want to take advantage of that. So, just do your best. Think about who's going to have the kids next week or who had them last week. And let's set each other up for success and for just consistency in how we're following through. So all of these points are really important. Keith, I don't want to duplicate what he said, but you can do all the right preparation and you can expect that things are going to be smooth sailing, only to have surprises that throw you off. Maybe a child with special needs acts out, or a few children just are having a great time together, but it gets a little noisy. Maybe a child's throwing a necklace across the room, or Billy is totally turned around facing the other way. Maybe you have more children than you were prepared for. Praise God, that's a problem for us right now, right? So just a few kind of affirmations of things that Keith has already communicated for many of them. So we've got our rules. Let them know these rules are in place so that we can have a great time together. So they're going to sense your heart and how you present those rules. Make it fun and let them know these are here for our safety and our enjoyment. I think so much is communicated in how we talk to them. Be kind, have fun, be gracious, be joyful. Even using eye contact to help manage behavior. Give a little special wink, or this kind of a look like, I see what you're doing. And, sometimes I think they see that eye communication and it can take care of some business. They see when your eyes are crinkled in joy. I'm getting more crinkles, but it's good, and we can rejoice over good behavior. Sometimes you might whisper to get their attention. Just change it up a little bit. Talk less. Maybe you pause and you say, oh, I'll wait for you to finish. Or, let the kids realize that you're not going to waste your time talking until they're done. Keith talked about positively directing behavior. Maybe instead of don't touch your neighbor, say, please put your hands in your lap so that I know you're listening. They like those positive statements. One thing I've really found with kids, they love options. You guys probably know that and see that, but give them a choice if you can. Like, either you can sit in here and you can listen to the story, or I can have you go sit in the hallway. Don't be naughty in the class. An option for special needs too that I read about was maybe you have a stuffed animal in the corner and a Storybook Bible, and they just can have a little set apart place to go be safe and calm down. And then prepare your heart. I know for me, if I wake up late on a Sunday morning, I'm more frenzied. I'm not feeling prepared. So do what you can do just to give yourself a little more margin. Pray, commit that time to the Lord. Pray about this opportunity you have. You guys have, this is the most important role. I want to say it's the most important thing you can do on a Sunday morning. Arrive early. Make sure you see that things are in place and you're confident and comfortable with what you're teaching. And we know that God's will be accomplished in our time. And then just have fun. Kids sense. They know if we want to be here or not. They know they're going to be able to tell if you're happy to be back serving with them or not. So have fun. Show them that you care, and value your investment of time with the kids. So your attitude is contagious. So we know a lot of you are doing a lot of different things at Renton Bible, but what a privilege for us all to be serving together. And again, praise God that we've got this growing issue of more kids. So I'm so excited, and again, just grateful for Keith's time developing this teaching, and Cindy for all you do. And any last questions? I think we're just about done. I don't know, Keith, anything more from you? Yeah. Any other questions? Any other thoughts? Okay. You can come to Keith, come to Cindy, come to Dan, come to myself if you have any questions. But let's just close our time in prayer, and then we get you out the door early. And Lord, we are so grateful for all that you're doing here at Renton Bible Church. And Father, thank you for each individual that's in this room that cares, that has responded to passing their faith on to the children that you have entrusted into our care, whether it's for one Sunday, Lord, or for years. God, our heart's desire is that it's for years, and that we can help to build a strong faith, a strong theology in the lives of these children. Give us strength for this year, Lord. Give us health. Give us wisdom when things are challenging, and just help us to keep doing our very best to just to teach these littles and love them. Go before us this day and this year. And Father, we give you the glory for our church, for our faith in you, and for what you are doing. In your name we pray. Amen.